I think we should start. Today we have Li Jia. She's a grad student and a visiting scholar at the Ostrom workshop. And today she will be talking about tax dispute resolution between China and the ASEAN in the digital economy, an analysis based on the IAD framework. Right? So rules of engagement, 30 minutes, only clarifying questions, I think, during these 30 minutes. And then I will be keeping the queue. So priority to students that wants to ask questions. Okay, floor is yours. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Gustav. I would like to thank you all today for attending my presentation. Thanks to the workshop for giving me this opportunity to do my research. I'm sincerely grateful to my mentor, Professor Danko. Thank you for your unwavering guidance and support through the journey. I really appreciate Professor McGuinness, Professor Gustav, Professor Eduardo, and Professor Scott, and all my colleagues. Thank you for your encouragement and help. Once again, thank you all. I'm an associate professor of the taxation department of Guangxi University of Finance and Economics. I have 2 decades of extensive experience in the field of tax management. This is a photo of my home city, Liuzhou City. It's in the south of China. During my work, I was mainly responsible for tax policy research and tax administration. I have accumulated a lot of research questions throughout my practical experience, especially in policy implementation. Additionally, my work often involved dealing with tax matters from ASEAN countries, which led me to study China-ASEAN tax issues more closely. International tax issues are increasingly prominent, highlighted by higher profile cases involving companies such as Apple and Google. These cases have a result in base erosion and profit shifting. This phenomenon, known as the double non-taxation, is a central concept driving initiative like the BEPS actions. Another challenge is the double taxation, which is being addressed throughout the tax dispute resolution mechanism. Today, we will focus on the tax dispute resolution. This is the map of ASEAN. ASEAN is the abbreviation for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. There are 10 countries: Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Indonesia, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, and Brunei. China and ASEAN countries share the geographic proximity, cultural similarities, and a long-standing history of interaction. By 2022, bilateral trade between China and ASEAN had exceeded $917 million, more than doubling from a decade ago. Remarkably, China and ASEAN had maintained the status of being each other's largest trading partner for 3 years. This is Nanning, the capital of Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. It's the permanent venue of the China-ASEAN Expo. Since 2004, the China-ASEAN Expo has been successfully organized for 20 times. During the Expo, the China and ASEAN Finance and Taxation Cooperation Forum also held. This is the feature for me to attend the forum. In my research, I have 5 questions. First, what challenges arise in resolving tax dispute in China and ASEAN in the digital economy? 2. What are the mechanisms for resolving tax dispute between China and ASEAN? How is the behavior of the actors affected by the international tax rule? And at the same time, how do they contribute to change in tax rules? 3. Is there monitoring in the process? How does it influence the process? 4. What are the problems with the current China-ASEAN tax dispute resolution mechanism? 5. What are the recommendations for improving the China-ASEAN tax dispute resolution mechanism? To answer these questions, we need to use the IND framework. The international taxation is widely acknowledged to become complex, especially in the digital economy. While considerable research has examined the technique of tax system design, there remains a significant gap in understanding the process of the tax policy formulation and implementation. The IAD framework provides a valuable aspect to illuminate this process landscape, offering a deeper understanding of the complex factors that influence tax policy change. By uncovering the underlying method and motivation behind the tax policy decision, we can provide valuable insights to improve governance and refine policy design in this critical area. This is the IND framework I drew for the tax dispute resolution between China and ASEAN. There are 3 boxes. The first box is the pre-existing condition. The second box is the patterns of correction and adjustment action situation. The third box is outcomes and effects. I will expand it in detail. Because in my presentation, I have used many technical abbreviations, so I will explain them at the beginning. UN, United Nations, OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, BEPS, Base Erosion and Profit Shifting. BEPS action, a series of actions of just BEPS. NAP, Mutual Agreement Procedure. To address the tax challenges posed by the digital economy, the OECD launched the BEPS initiative in 2016 with the 15 specific action plans, including treaty abuse, transfer pricing, and country-by-country reporting. We can see this is the BEPS actions. The 40 BEPS actions making dispute resolution mechanisms more effective, which contain BEPS minimum standards, was adopted on October 2015. So what is the Action 40 minimum standard? The Action 40 minimum standard consists of 21 elements and 12 best practice, which assess the legal and administrative framework of jurisdictions. First, preventing disputes. 2, availability and access to NAP. 3, resolution of NAP cases. 4, implementation of NAP agreements. Jurisdictions that have joined the BEPS inclusion framework has committed to implementing the minimum standards for Action 14 by the 1st January 2016. Therefore, the study will use 2015 as the time point. Now we can answer the first question, what challenges arise in resolving tax dispute in China and ASEAN in the digital economy? First, unilateral digital taxes, specifically the digital service tax, which impose levies based on the turnover rather than the income or profits, pose a significant risk of double taxation. Two, diverse tax systems. Three, variation in international tax treaties. Four, exist in cooperation and competition. Let's go to the first box. The first box is pre-existing condition. The big box have three small boxes: resource systems, resource units, and actors. The resource systems is the international rules. The resource units is the bilateral treaty and other policies between China and ASEAN. Let us go to the resource systems. There are 5 rules. 1, unimodal double taxation convention between developed and developing countries. 2, OECD model tax convention on income and on capital international tax rules. 3, international tax rules. 4, BEPS action 40 mutual agreement procedure. 5, multilateral convention to implement tax treaty related measure to prevent BEPS. The 4 and the 5 is the new rules after the BEPS. And the multilateral instrument is designed to streamline and amend existing bilateral tax treaties to combat tax avoidance and promote transparency. Because we have this multilateral instrument, we will not design the bilateral treated ones. The second box is the resource units. Based on the international rules, China and ASEAN have some policies to implementation this kind of rules. The resource units include 1, bilateral agreements between China and ASEAN countries. 2, national domestic tax systems. 3, implementation measures of mutual agreement procedure for tax treaty-related issues. 3 is the new policies and the resource units. The implementation measures are optimized by countries based on the NAP. Based on NAP, we can draw implementation measures. This is the tax dispute resolution approach between China and ASEAN countries. To resolve the tax dispute, there are 2 routes. One route is the domestic resolution mechanism. Another route is the international settlement mechanism. The hosting country domestic tax relief process include negotiation, administrative reconsideration, administrative litigation. If one case cannot resolve in the domestic tax relief process, it will be referred to the international settlement mechanism. The international mechanism include NAP process and international judicial decision. At present, China and ASEAN countries haven't adopted the arbitration in this process. Let's go to the 3 box. What are the actors in the process? The actors include 4. 1, state taxation administration. 2, competent tax authorities. 3, tax authority of ASEAN countries. 4, transnational taxpayers. After the first box, let's go to the second box. The second box is the patterns of the interaction in adjacent ASEAN situation. Because the NAP process is the main approach to deal with the tax dispute between China and ASEAN. So today we focus on the NAP and the monitoring process. The MAP process including 4 stages. First stage is application initiation stage. Second is preliminary examination by the competent tax authorities and unilateral settlement stage. 3, future negotiation stage. 4, protocol execution stage. In this 4th stage, the transnational taxpayer cannot attend all the stage. They can only participate in the application initiation stage. Other stage, the transnational taxpayer cannot directly participate. After the BEP 40 actions, the OECD needed all the countries submit their NAP data. China and ASEAN country already submit their NAP data. My analysis is based on this data. This is the China Mutual Agreement procedural statistic. With the implementation of BEPS Action 14 from 2016 to 2022, the stock of NAP cases in China has seen a significant rise at the beginning and the end of the year, along with a slight increase in the number of new and closed cases. Although the average annual case closure time in 2016 met a requirement of BEPS Action 14. The close time in following years remained longer, exceeding the 24 months threshold. This is the China's situation. And only 5 countries of ASEAN country, they submitted the report to OECD. So we analyze this data based on this support. Indonesia has the highest number of inventory NAP cases at the beginning of the year, followed by Singapore and Malaysia. Thailand and Vietnam had fewer stock cases, while Brunei has none. This is the start inventory. This is a figure about the end inventory. Indonesia has the highest number of NAP cases, followed by the Singapore and Malaysia. Singapore exhibit the lowest in the inventory for NAP cases in 2018. However, since 2019, the end inventory has maintained a higher volume. This is mainly due to the high number of new cases. Vietnam and Thailand starting with few NAP cases in the stock at the beginning of the year, consequently present low and volume. Brunei has not reported any inventory cases. This is the figure of the cases started. In 2018, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia reported a notable increase in new NAP cases. Subsequently, for 2019 to 2022, Singapore consistently leads with the highest number of the new cases, followed by the Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam report few new cases during this period, while Brunei does not report any new cases. This is the figure about the cases closed. Singapore leads with the highest number of the closed cases, followed by the Malaysia and Indonesia. Vietnam and Thailand have few new cases initially, consequently exhibit few closure. Brunei has not reported cases, naturally has not closed cases. This is a figure about the NAP time. Singapore consistently adhere to the BEPS action 14 maps closure time and remind within the 24 months throughout the analysis period. Indonesia consistently exhibited longer average NAP cases closure time, with the average closure time reaching 16 to 18 months in 2020. The data reveals diversities of NAP and effectiveness across ASEAN countries. First, regional disparity in NAP cases. Indonesia consistently had the highest number of NAP cases, indicating potential test dispute or ambiguities in test agreements involving Indonesia entities. Two, trends in new NAP cases. Singapore consistently lead in new NAP cases, highlighting the importance as a regional hub for transnational cooperation and proactive approach to resolving the test dispute. Three, closure time front compliance. Singapore constantly adheres to the BEPS Action 14 closure time frame. Other countries experience challenges in meeting this requirement. Indonesia constantly exhibits longer closure time for NAP cases. This could indicate complexity in resolving test dispute, resource strength, and administrative inefficiencies within the Indonesia test authorities. Now we can answer the second question. What are the mechanisms for resolving test dispute between China and ASEAN? How is the behavior of actors affected by international test rules? The specific data of NAP cases reveal significant disparity in case handling, including the number of cases, processing volume, and time required for resolution. This suggests that both China and ASEAN countries have opportunity for further optimization to ensure the timely and effective resolution for cross-border test dispute. Despite the disparities, the data also indicate the positive trends. Under the framework of BEPS Action 14, test authorities and transnational taxpayers in both China and ASEAN countries are adopting their behavior pattern and align with the international regulation. So let's go to the monitoring. This is the third question. Is there monitoring in the process? How does it influence the process? Monitoring in this situation is the peer-reviewed. The BEPS includes framework following the Action 14, conduct peer reviews among the members to assess process and implementing minimum standard. This aims to enhance test auditing practice and translate communications into the actions. Members align their test treaties in legal system before peer review. The peer review have a two phase. The phase one is assessed compliance and offered recommendation. The phase two is to monitor the implementations of this recommendation. Let's go to the phase one. The phase one is the minimum standards. There are 18 countries attend these activities, including Australia, the United States, United Kingdom, and other countries, including 4 Asian countries: India, Japan, Korea, and Turkey. But ASEAN countries haven't attended phase one. Phase one have 3 focus areas. First, legal and administrative framework relative to the NAP. Second, test treaties. Third, domestic regulations. There are also have many key findings. China generally met most elements of the Action 14 minimum standard. Identified deficiency, especially in updating test treaty, with approximately 10% lacking required provision. Recommendations include reducing the average time to close NAP cases, enhancing documentation and communication process, and establishing a better consideration. And this key finding, especially in updating test treaties, we can go to the treaty signed between China and ASEAN countries. The earliest test treaty was signed in 1985. And most of the treaties were signed in the last century. It does need to be updated. Let's go to the phase two. The phase two is focused on the improvement recommendation. The participator is also included 18 countries at phase one, and plus input from Indonesia and Singapore. These 2 countries is ASEAN countries. And phase two, there are 2 focus areas. One, evaluation of China's Action 14 minimum standard implementation. Monitor the implementation of improvement recommended by the phase one peer review. On phase two, there also have some key finding and improvement. China's effort, sign multilateral instrument, updating test treaties via bilateral negotiation, extensive cooperation throughout the review process. Now, we can answer this question. Is there monitoring in the process? How does it affect? Yes, there is monitoring. It's the peer reviews. The peer reviews enhance cooperation and dispute resolution. Continuous efforts in collaboration vital for further improvement. Let's go to the third box. At this stage, we have another question. How do the actors contribute to the changes in the test rules? And the third box also have 3 boxes: resource system, resource units, and actors. The resource system is the international rules. The international rules plus the 2-pillar solution to address the test challenges arising from the digitalization of the economy. The pillar one is the redistribute some of the taxation power of large multinational corporations from their place of incorporation back to their place of operation and profitability. Pillar two, establishing the lowest corporate tax rate in the world and ending the bottomless inward spiral of tax havens. This is the international rules the actors contribute. And go to the resource units. This is the policies between China and ASEAN. There are two new policies. First is the administrative measures, special tax investigation and adjustment and mutual agreement procedure. Matters regarding enhancing the administration of the advanced pricing agreement. The two policy is new policy at this stage. This is the actors contribute to the China and ASEAN policy. And this is the flowchart of the China mutual agreement procedure. China has taken activity measures to strengthen tax administration and align with international standards. Organization of NAP process enhance efficiency and transparency in resolving tax dispute. Based on my research, we can know the phase 2 and phase 1 is peer reviews. But what's the opinion about the taxpayer? This is the feedback on tax dispute resolution mechanism from taxpayer. In 2019, the State Administration of Taxation conducted a survey to assess international tax dispute resolution involving China. The survey measured cooperation levels, resource availabilities, and satisfaction with outcomes among the stakeholders. The figure is the subject of a tax dispute. The transfer pricing has the highest percentage of the tax dispute. Is at the 24.77%. Along with the real cases of violation, indicating that most cross-border tax issues involve transfer pricing. The second interesting thing is about withholding tax. A significant portion of this dispute at 7.95% reflect the global trends and enhancement of withholding tax in recently. This is the figure about the approach to the tax dispute resolution. The NAP process is the primary method of resolution, representing the 14%. And it is very interesting. Resolution without reconsideration is about 14.34%. Most cases were settled friendly without the need for further legal action. At the same time, still have a 14.29% of cases are appealed to the court for resolution.
So I think we are running out of time. Can you wrap up so we have some space for questions?
Okay, I will quickly. Okay, I will quickly.
Yeah.
And this is the one for no seeking review or other relief. The first is the lengthy process. The second is unclear understanding. The third is cost and resource. The fourth is the lack of confidence. This is the dispute resolution recommendation. First, reference to tax treat, interpretation, and guidance. Second is the increased transparencies. 4, improvement of NAP. 5, establishment of a mutual negotiation program tracking system. 6, utilization of common mechanism. So we can have the survey summary. Transfer pricing disputes are prominent, reflecting the global trends. And NAP is the main resolution method with many cases being settled friendly. However, a significant portion of cases remained unresolved, often due to the length process, unclear understanding, and the resource constraint. Recommendation for the improvement include better test treaty interpretation, enhanced transparencies, and streamline the NAP process. So we can draw a conclusion. Why the mechanism for resolving test disputes between China and ASEAN had adjusted to changing international test standards. It still encounters challenges such as efficiencies, constraints, and transparency issues during implementation. The outcomes of actions among actors continued to shape international test rules and domestic test policies, representing an ongoing process of development and enhancement. At this picture, I draw a optimization of the test dispute resolution mechanism between China and ASEAN. I built a new mechanism. It's the pre-NAP mechanism and NAP, a post-NAP mechanism. The pre-NAP mechanism is the leverage international compliance and assurance program. And the post-NAP alternative dispute resolution, establishing an arbitration-like mechanism alongside consolidating the procedure. And this is my recommendation of optimizing the China-ASEAN test resolution mechanism, open participation of multinational taxpayer, transparency and taxation, priority on the taxpayer right, establishing pre-NAP mechanism, integrating the post-alternative dispute resolution. All these measures, they have one goal: enhancing mutual trust, improving compliance, and providing test certainty. This is my research. Thank you all.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
I really enjoyed this presentation. Especially for someone who studies the digital economy, I think taxation is something that I've been just neglecting to sort of dive deeper. And especially this is fascinating for me, especially from Taiwan in an ASEAN context, thinking about this and understanding sort of the complexity under the IID framework. One thing that I was curious, while reading your piece, is the resolution part. I think you briefly mentioned at the very end about a arbitration-like mechanism here. So I'm curious about maybe breaking it down to 3 questions. One is traditionally, how has arbitration been used in tax dispute? And the second is just right now in the digital economy, how would it sort of enhance or play a more important role here? What is the context that the significance of arbitrators in a digital economy? And maybe a little bit more of where you have left out, which is the process that you're trying to construct. What are maybe the qualifications? Are there any model that you have based off when you're designing this mechanism? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. I think this is a very specific questions. Yes, in the traditional economy, they also have the arbitration mechanism, but China and ASEAN country haven't adopted Why? Because there is some reason about it. The China and ASEAN country, they think the arbitration will concern about the tax sovereignty. These are the first things. Another thing is the because if we need to build the arbitrations committee, we need many experts to join them. But because except the Singapore, most of the ASEAN country are developing country. They haven't this experience to deal with the international tax dispute. They have a very a little expert to deal with it. An expert with the tax experience and legal acknowledgement, I think, is very important in this process. And it can fair, it can independent because arbitration committee, we cannot avoid the officers and tax department or other officers, department. They only can go with any like the university. I think this is the things. I think in the traditional economy, they also have the arbitration, but China and ASEAN haven't adopted it. Many countries, especially America, European country, European United, they also adopt this kind of mechanism. This is the first question. And the second question, digital economy, I can see the digital economy had an unique character, different national economy. So we can make the dispute, the tax dispute, more and more. In my research, we can notice the NAP closure time very long after the BEPS 14. They need to obey the time framework, but they cannot deal with so many cases because the cases is more and more. And the mechanism, the NAP mechanism is a very long process. But the arbitration and American mechanism, after the NAP process, 2 years, including you at the beginning, the stage, 2 years, if the NAP process cannot resolve it, you go to the arbitration. It's committed, But in China and ASEAN, they haven't adopted arbitration. So this is the question and how to deal with this kind of the question in the digital economy. Except the NAP process, the arbitration, I think, is a very good method to deal with the questions. Even in the traditional economy, the arbitration used is very useful in the process. And the second question, and so sorry, please repeat again. The second
Arbitration like just the.
Oh, thank you. The arbitration like is different of the arbitration. Why I choose this mechanism arbitration like because I also mentioned the China and ASEAN will not adopt the arbitration mechanism because they have some concern about the sovereignty or the other domestic policies complementation. So the European Union have this kind of the arbitration system. They can allow the taxpayer and companies and the tax authority combine to deal with these kind of issues. And this can make a very useful framework to deal with the tax dispute. And the attribution lag can use this framework, but it must be flexible. Especially the commit, the consist of the commit, and arbitration rules. We need to the fixed person members, but and arbitration lag assistant, the people, the members is flexible, and the procedure and arbitration, you need to, when comes to procedure, the most majority the opinion is to make the decision. But and arbitration lag, I think you can adopt many other method, many other process. So I think it's more flexible. So I think China and ASEAN country, they can adopt this kind of mechanism. So this is my answer. I want to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, I have,
We have two more.
okay, yeah, so I'll go with a simpler sort of question, and we can talk about some of this other stuff later. You said that the transfer of pricing is the major source of a lot of these disputes. Could you explain what that means? To someone who doesn't have a degree in tax policy or?
Yeah, the transfer pricing issue is an accounting practice. It can give the company have this I think distinguish and determine what price from one entity to another entity for the goods or service. Because use this method, use this practice, they can transfer their profit. They can charge the higher price in the higher tax countries, tax rate countries, and charge the lower price in the lower tax rate countries. The goal, they do these things to allocate the cost and the profit. And they can transfer the profit to a low tax rate country or zero tax rate country. So they can do this to avoidance of tax. So this is very popular and I think many transnational companies. So this is the best focus on this behavior. If we do not to focus on it, there will be have many tax haven. This transfer pricing is associated with the tax haven.
Okay, so transfer pricing sounds like sort of a euphemism for tax avoidance.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
It's just it's accounting technique to shift profits from one country to another, and essentially you are doing it to transfer profits essentially to countries with lower tax.
So if that happens, the dispute regarding that transaction would come primarily from the country that has the higher tax rate, and who's being, whether that's the host country or where the person's buying it or not, it's sort of a chance of trying to get back some of the money that they don't get, and probably the low tax country doesn't get either from the taxes. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to play this system. Okay.
Yeah, and these behaviors, the tax authority also to address them. They also have one kind of the mechanism to deal with them. One is the APA, is the advanced price arrangement. The company can submit the document about transferred pricing to tax authority. And tax authority can refine it and can make this decision and how to deal with this. And if some company will not do this, they have a many problem of that. The tax authority will make it go to the marketing the price and go to the, I think, the tax bill. I think it is most important concept, tax avoidance.
Let me collect, because we only have 10 minutes, so raise your hand. So who, I think you are first and then Nicholas, yes. Please.
I still have one more question, like, because I think China and ASEAN have implemented a lot of agreement for the tax exemption. But why tax like dispute still happens a lot? Yeah, I think they will try to figure it out, or they will try to make it like tax-free, but we still have a lot of tax disputes. So I wonder why this happened, or why they haven't figured it out currently. That's my question.
Let me collect a couple of questions. So I think you are next and you, so it's. Yes, you would be.
Yeah, so one of the things that strikes me as one of the big hurdles to put and facing arbitration and settlement of these disputes, and also one of the hurdles to transparency is complexity in taxation. And there's a big push, particularly by I think some European scholars, that as you do digitization of tax law, it should also be paralleled with simplification. So I wonder what you think of that and how we do more simplification, particularly as there's a lot of scholars who are also arguing that taxes should be able to do more to accomplish policy aims, which, you know, that's going to result in more complex taxation, which seems like it would make all these other things way more difficult.
Yeah.
Let me go to.
Oh, yeah, my question is, I know at the very beginning of the presentation, you mentioned something like a tax avoidance cases involve Apple and Google. And also I've come across some terms like Apple tax and Google tax on the internet. I just wondering, can you like clarify like what those terms refer to? Are they only specified to impose on those big companies? And also you mentioned like tax haven for the companies to avoid tax. Because I'm not a tax degree, so I don't know how companies need this method to minimize their tax liabilities.
Okay.
So many questions. I know.
Yeah. 7 minutes.
So scared. The first question is the dispute in the Asian country. Yes, they already have a free trade agreement, but we can know, except tariff tax, we have many kinds of tax, about income tax, the consumer tax, or many other tax. And in the trade process, and we can have many problem and implication. The first, interpretation of the policy and the rule. The tax authority have their opinion. The taxpayer have their opinion. But when the policy implemented, so how is the correct? How can deal with this implementation? And second is the I think complexity of the implementation. Just like if we have this free trade agreement, we have some specific regulation and have some is that, for example, the current frustration. So these factors can affect the agreement. So especially we cannot focus on the trade because in the other taxes and the implementation, we have a many complexity the situation. So I think even we have the treaty to promote the trade, but we even need to focus on the implementation. This is my answer. I think, can you answer the question? Okay. Excuse me, the arbitration, I don't remember arbitration.
Yeah, just the issue of complexity.
Complexity of the.
Yeah, it's more complexity because arbitration is alternate the mechanism to the NAP process. You already say this very complexity and this complexity. So if we streamline this process, we can make it clearly. So in my presentation, we can see this is the my suggestion about that. We can have a pre-NAP mechanism and a post-NAP mechanism. The post-NAP arbitration type mechanism, he can plus in this process to deal with dispute, but it's not only in the most mechanism because compared with the NAP, arbitration is also more complicated. Yeah, it's also more need to more time and more energy to deal with. So the first step, we think, if we can deal with friendly, it's very good. But if we cannot deal with friendly, we can go to the NAP process. The NAP process, I think, at present, is very useful. Is I think to especially for Asian and China countries, NAP process is good for them. Thank you. And
Google, Apple.
This is very interesting. Very interesting the question. Actually, the Apple test and the Google test are very different. The Apple test is one kind of fee. It usually refer to the high price of the Apple products. Apple product is more expensive than similar products with other technology company. And another way to expand it is the if you Apple company charge the fee 30% on the average on the avenue to the APP or impulse VPP process purchase. This is one comes to fee. Yeah, so test is Apple test is one kind of fee, but Google test is one comes to test, but it's not a specific test. It's the shifting profit test. It's one kind of shifting profit test. Because the Googles have many transfer pricing practice to use in this situation. They can shift their profit to a very lower zero, a very low area, so they can reduce their tax burdens. And this kind of the situation occurred in many transnational transnational companies, but because the Google use this strategy is very, I think, it's popular, so it is very important. Google is a very big company, so we can use this and the nickname Google test, but it is one kind of the profit shifting test.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And also, can you explain what is the tax haven?
Oh,
Because I don't have a tax degree, so I don't know, but I'm curious about that.
oh yeah. Tax haven often refer to the offshore finance center. Yeah, do you know the Island, the England Virgin Island? These are the offshore internet financial center. These centers they can refer the very low tax rate.
Okay.
Or even they have many, I think the business and this, but they have a very lower tax rate. And second, they will have a slight finance regulation. And third, in this area, they will have a very tightly guidance for the bank information. So they have these factors, they can prevent the company in this area to reduce their tax to do many kinds of the erosion base or the shifting profit. So I think the tax haven is this meaning.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so if people have more questions, I would suggest that they stay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you very much for everybody following online and following here, okay?
And I think the IND framework is very useful. I think I hope more and more scholars to use the IND framework to find the research very interesting. Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you. Thank you.